let's talk about what we're going to talk about. Our presentation overview is to provide a demonstration of how to use the pre-launch portal. And for some of you, this might be a new term, but don't worry. Pre-launch is an awful lot like the world of WebAdMIT you might already be familiar with. We're also going to discuss the purpose of the OPRESCAS and WebAdMIT systems. Why do they exist? And what are the benefits to the various stakeholders? We're going to review the terminology used within the Liaison, WebAdMIT, Pre-Launch, and OPRESCAS systems. We'll go through some of the next steps for residency program staff, faculty, and administrators to make sure that you're using the system to its fullest. And last but not least, review NCOPE and Liaison's resources that are available for you, the stakeholders. So simply put, what is OPRESCAS? It's a full-service, web-based application system that allows residency candidates, people that want to be your residents, to apply to multiple residency programs via a single web-based portal, while also simultaneously streamlining the selection process for your program directors and staff. And that's what Ms. Marshall is going to really put her energy into today, is coaching you through how do you go through all these applications versus what is typically more of a paper-based workflow at a lot of organizations. On that note, it also provides NCOPE and the profession at large a lot of crucial data on job opportunities. We're able to actually better understand where is there a demand for clinicians and where are there areas where there are positions not being filled, for example. Now, I mentioned Liaison already, and I could tell you Liaison is NCOPE's trusted software partner. And I'd argue they're well beyond software. They're really a solution vendor. And they developed and administer the OPRESCAS system, in addition to OPCAS, how people apply to the master's programs. And they also implement a lot of other common app services for other professions like physical therapy and med school. On that note, Liaison has a team of individuals that are here to support the residency directors and program staff with the administration and use of the system. And this presentation is just one example. And this is being done obviously as a group webinar, but we're happy to work with you individually as well. So what is WebAdMIT? Well, WebAdMIT is a free online application software designed to bring all applicant data to the fingertips, digitally, of course, for the residency program directors, mentors, and staff. It's also a tool that places all the information about each residency candidate into a convenient location, one place where you can see, where did this person go to school? What's their background? How much experience do they have? And do they want to do an orthotic residency or a prosthetic residency? Gives you a lot of good info to make sure you're matching up people who are interested in being your resident with your openings at your organization. Now there's two environments, we call them. There's pre-launch and WebAdMIT. And the secret here is they look exactly the same, but they have two different roles. And for those of you that might have worked in websites or software, it might make a little bit more sense for you, but this is designed ultimately to have pre-launch serve as what is called a development environment. Pre-launch is where you begin configuring your programs, setting up your applications, and also creating new applications for when you add additional residency opportunities. For example, you may realize, hey, our prosthetist with 20 years experience, they're retiring. Good for them. We need to start training someone to be the next norm. So you're able to set up and build applications in the world of pre-launch. The address for pre-launch is just prelaunch.webadmit.org. Now there's also WebAdMIT, which those of you that are seasoned users, you've likely been here before. WebAdMIT is the version of the WebAdMIT platform where you view applicants for programs that have been configured in pre-launch, meaning all the applications that are built and currently visible, seeking residents actively, you're going to view those within WebAdMIT. And it's also how you're going to add new users to your organization, because you may not be the only person looking at these applications, for example. For a bit of context, I have individuals representing the U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs, Autobot Clinical Services, as well as the OSER Clinical Partnership. These are pretty big organizations, so there might be more than one person involved with the hiring and selection process. And the good news is WebAdMIT allows this. Now, the ABCs of WebAdMIT, the quick dictionary. Now, there's an organization, and this is an O&P company, and it can represent multiple accredited residency sites. So at the US Department of Veteran Affairs, they're a single organization, but it represents over 20 unique residency programs from San Diego all the way over to New York City. Now, a residency program is an individual program type and location that an organization wishes to advertise. So going back to our example of the US Department of Veteran Affairs, the US Department of Veteran Affairs Hines is their Chicago-based residency site, looking for a 12-month orthotic residency. So that's one of their programs, but they also have a program in San Diego for a 12-month prosthetic residency too. So if you're in a situation like this where you have multiple programs, you're looking for orthotic residents or prosthetic residents, or maybe even a combined O&P residency, well, there's ways to do it. So let's work through a case scenario. How many programs should I configure? Boston Orthotics and Prosthetics is a good example. Jim Wynn's their residency director, and I talked with them about this scenario actually. Boston O&P wishes to hire one 18-month combined O&P resident for their Richmond, Virginia office, one 12-month orthotic residency for their Richmond, Virginia office, and two 12-month orthotic residency positions for their Boston, Massachusetts locations. So how many programs need to be configured? And I could see I got a combined residency and two different orthotic residencies, and one of them wants more than one resident, and we're in two different states. What do we do? It's going to be three, because you need to look at it on a geographic level as well as a program type level. So in Richmond, they're looking for two different types of residents, a combined O&P resident and an orthotic resident. So each one of those should get its own program advertised. Don't worry, you're not going to actually have to retype everything all the time for these. And then they also need to advertise just one more position for Boston's orthotic residency position, because while they're hoping to actually fill more than one resident in that role, those two residents are going to get the same training, orthotic training, in the same location, Boston. So where do I perform configurations? And performing configurations is just a fancy way of saying, where do I build my applications? We now do that in a service called WebAdMIT Pre-Launch via something called the CAS configuration portal. So the steps are pretty easy. You're going to log into Pre-Launch. The link's right there. I'm going to actually do it. We're going to scroll down to the administration tab on the left-hand side and choose CAS configuration portal. And then we're going to go ahead and work through the process of configuring a CAS. So while I do this quick demo for the team, I was going to actually open up the floor to some questions you might have. So you're welcome to unmute yourself. And I'll also open up the chat window if you're not sure about your mic. But we already got one good question. Will we have access to the recording of this webinar? You bet. We will absolutely have this recording available. And it's going to be on the NCOPE YouTube channel. So if you just go to YouTube and search for NCOPE, it's the easiest way to find it. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead now and show you the wide world of pre-launch. This is where I'm going to build some applications. And those of you that are squinting, let me fix this real quick. So my Zoom is tweaked a little bit for you. And you can see my address at the top is prelaunch.webadmit.org. If you don't type in all this other stuff, session/new, it's okay, it'll still work. And I'm going to use my fancy tool to remember my passwords, and I'm going to log on in. And when I log into the system, this is the view that I have as a systems administrator. I want to actually give you the view that you're going to have as somebody who might not have that really high level access. So I'm actually going to channel Kevin, who happens to be joining us today. So I'm going to go ahead now and find Kevin and click on this little blue person. So right now, your view is going to look like this, whether you're Kevin, Taffy, Julie, or anyone else within the system. So when I'm signed in as Kevin in pre-launch, a couple of things. In pre-launch, that's not where you actually view the applications, the people who actually said, I want to work for you. So you're going to see zeros next to all these apps because There won't be any. The applications don't live here. What does live here, though, are your configurations, your actual blanks and information you need to share with candidates. So I'm going to click on CAS Configuration Portal. When I do that, you'll see a new tab opened up at the top of my screen. If you have a pop-up blocker and no tab opens up, you may need to disable it. And usually that's done by just holding the control button. So I'm going to click OPRESCAS. And then you'll see different cycles. And right now is the 2021-2022 cycle. What that means is this is where you build applications that will open up anytime between the fall of 2021 through the summer of 2022. On the left-hand side, you'll see your organization's name. And this is a little bit more clear than my view. When I do this, I get to see every single company in the system. That's a lot. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this. And I picked Kevin intentionally because he has a lot of programs that have already been approved. These little comments that say approved, that's good news because it means that they've actually been advertising positions for residents. On that note, I want to show you how to build a program from scratch. So I'm going to actually hit a little button here and go add a program. And the key here is we want to make sure that you understand what you're sharing with folks. So Kevin works for a company called Kenny Orthopedics, and they have offices in multiple states. So you need to be clear which states and areas you're looking to hire individuals. So let's imagine they open up a brand new office in Chicagoland by me. So you can call this Chicago 12-month orthotic residency. But it should be descriptive enough that a candidate can recognize just by a quick glance, hey, I think I know where Chicago is. And where it says WebAdMIT name, this is your internal name. And if there's one thing the O&P folks seem to like, it's acronyms and initials. So you can do things like SHI-12 months /OX. But this is just your internal language, if you will. You're going to enter your city and your state, as well as the zip code. Now your open date is the date that you want to start accepting applications from people. What's the very first day you'd like to see resumes and information from candidates? If you want it open ASAP, that's really easy to do. Just pick yesterday or any time before today. So yesterday was the 21st. The residency start date is the day you want that resident to walk through the door and start working. So winter runs January through March. Spring runs April through June. Summer 1 and 2 are the first and second halves. So summer 1 is July through mid-August, and summer 2 is later July through the end of September, excuse me, the middle of August, the end of September. On that note, I could tell you that rolling is a nice approach because if you select rolling, what that means is we're happy to have you start flexibly or maybe when you're available. And that works to the advantage of a lot of O&P school grads. Why? Because the schools graduate at different times. December, University of Texas Southwestern, as well as FIU/IIOP in Florida graduate. Then in April, you got NCOPE and Loma Linda. Then in June, you have University of Hartford and University of Washington. They're all over the place. So if you say rolling, you're essentially identifying some flexibility on when they could start their residency. And the first day of residency, well, that can occur the day after the diploma is dated. So if they have a master's degree in O&P that was conferred on March.
What is she doing?
Somebody might want to mute their microphone. Let's see if I can help them out. All right, I think I got it. Sorry about that. Now the start year is the year that you want them to begin their employment. So we want them to start in 2022. If you want to start advertising positions in 2023, you got to wait until later this year. So you can't start advertising for 2023 jobs until the fall of 2022. On that note, we have deadlines. The deadline is the last day you want to see applications come into the system. You basically slam the door shut on candidates. I normally recommend leaving it open for at least a few weeks, if you will. On that note, let's just work with March 31st. So what this means is if somebody goes into the system and tries to apply on April Fool's Day, April 1st, they won't see the Chicago 12-month orthotic residency for Kenny. It's not going to exist. But if they walk in on the 31st and manage to get all their info in and hit submit, they can do it. Now, what I like to do is you can tweak your display deadline for candidates. You could say it's rolling, so they actually won't see a deadline. It'll just magically disappear on the 31st. You could provide a different date, because if you're worried about procrastinators, a neat way to do this is say, you know what? I'm going to close that app on March 14th. But if they fall across the line before the 31st, guess what? It's still okay. Or you could actually display the same date, March 31st. On that note, you have to pick your program type. It's either an orthotic residency, a prosthetic residency, or a combined. And I think we said this is going to be an orthotic residency. For your track, remember, you can do a clinical track, a research track, and some of you actually let the resident pick. You can do either or. We're cool with that. So on that note, I'm picking clinical because it's by far the most common, and I believe the pathway that Kevin actually does. So when I hit save, well, now I have an application. If I scroll to the bottom, you'll see the word draft next to the application I've created. And if you hover over it, a little pencil will magically appear. I'm going to hit details. And this little eyeball lets you see what the candidates are going to see, and be prepared to be underwhelmed. If I was looking for a residency, I wouldn't think to myself, whew, place looks awesome. There's no info, it's blank. So how do we fix that? First of all, go to branding. And underneath branding, you could actually do some fancy graphics if you want. You can go to edit header, and it'll tell you here's how wide and how tall it needs to be in the image. And if you have a graphics person, I can tell you, Kenny's got a really good graphics and marketing person. They can make this for you pretty easy. On that note, I could even help you do that if you'd like as well. But we're going to keep things looking blank, because beyond the logo, which don't get me wrong, branding matters, instructions are more important. And right now, candidates don't know anything about what your residency program stands for. So if they don't know anything about the program, they're going to probably call you or email you and look you up in the ABC directory until they can get answers if they're truly thinking, I want to work there. So why don't you just answer the questions they want to know? So I'm going to go to a website here called OPRESCAS Program Info Portal. And I'm going to drop the link right into our chat window as well, because you're going to get a kick out of this. I recommend you click on it and bookmark it. You'll see information to share with candidates, and there's 10 questions. Ooh, those look good. I'm going to just hit copy. I'm going to go right here, and I'm going to paste them right in. And now you can go right through here and answer every one of the questions that you'd like to. So what patient populations does the facility serve? And remember, we're talking about Chicago here. So we have a large pediatric orthotic population, but also service adult/geriatric cases in both outpatient and inpatient settings. But essentially, you could go through, and it's just like Microsoft Word. You got little bullets and numbers and all sorts of things that you can put in here. But if you can answer these questions, the candidates know everything they want. But I want to show you one thing. What's the most important thing you can put in here? If you only answer one question, answer this one at the bottom. What's the name, title, and email address of the person who is best able to provide info not already listed above? That's easy. Kevin. And there's the email address, because Kevin likes email better than phone calls typically. If I hit my save button, what I can do now is, remember that little eyeball icon we were able to look at our application? I can go back here to program details and click on my eyeball and go, hey, I got some info now. Hey, look, it's Kevin's email address. So you have the ability to actually take a peek and add information as it's available. The other thing is you want to figure out, do you want things like resumes and cover letters? And to that I go, yeah, you probably do. Don't make them email them to you. So how do we add those? Just click editor at the top. Now, let's go to documents. And when you put a little checkbox next to it, the word documents becomes clickable. I'm going to click on it. And you can say something like, please submit all documents listed below. What documents do I want? Just hit the plus button. There's a resume option. Let's pick that. And the minimum required, I need a resume. Give me one resume minimum and one resume maximum. Otherwise, you'll get 7 different versions. So one works. And then let's get some other stuff real quick. You can get things like a personal statement, or I just like to do a cover letter. So you can pick other if there's not a term you like. And you can say, using this prompt, please provide a cover letter that explains why you are a good fit to work with the Kenny Orthopedic team. Save. And the one thing people forget, and even I do once in a while, is to hit the save button. Don't forget to hit save. You might remember the good old days in Microsoft Word when you close it and be like, I didn't hit save. It's kind of like that. They don't have an auto save. So I'm going to save it real fast. And let's go back and see if I have anything new by my eyeballs. Oh, I do. Documents. Click on my new eyeball and now you'll see. Please submit all the documents listed below. And I have a blank for a resume and a blank for my cover letter. So it automatically builds out. It makes a really nice application. Now you don't have to ask for things like transcripts. That's included. Everybody gets transcripts. You don't have to ask for a work history. It automatically asks them that. You don't have to ask them for their home mailing address, their email address. All that's automatic too. But there's a few other things you might want to do. If we go back to editor, remember there were a few more options. If you click next to evaluations, these are cool. Evaluations are instructor evals. So here we can say applicant instructions. Please have a minimum of 2 O&P school faculty members submit evaluations on your behalf. And you don't have to create the form. There's an automatic form that rates them on things like maturity, professionalism, reliability, and skills. All you got to do is click this little box here, OPRESCAS eval form. The one box I don't recommend you click is minimum required must be completed for application to be submitted for review. If you click this and you say that there's a minimum of 2 instructor evals and a maximum of 5 instructor evals, you won't even be able to see the whole application until the 2 faculty members where they went to O&P school get off their butts and fill them out. On that note, most O&P school faculty members are good, but some of them are busy. And you don't want a faculty member's inability to fill out a student eval to delay your HR process. It'll automatically be added when they do fill it out. So I'm going to go ahead and hit my save button. And remember, to actually see how things are looking, we can always go back to the eyeballs. I'm going to go to program details and evals. And now you can see, please have a minimum of 2 O&P school faculty members submit evaluations on your behalf. 2 are required, 5 are allowed. So it automatically builds all this stuff out for me. So let's imagine that we're happy with everything. Let's imagine that I've answered all the questions here under my branding. My evals look good. My documents, my CV request, my cover letter, those look good. The last thing you need to do to get this off into the wide world of people actually applying is hit submit for review. And it'll say by clicking submit, you indicate that your program, Chicago 12-month orthotic residency, is ready for activation by a CAS administrator. And a CAS administrator, that's not me. It's actually our team at Liaison. But when I hit the submit button, what will happen now is I'm going to go back to my organization and you'll see my application for Chicago now says review. And that means it's getting ready to be posted into the wide world of OPRESCAS, so I can view applicants within the WebAdMIT system. So once you get to this point, I'm pleased to say you don't necessarily need to be in pre-launch anymore because we built it, it's there. But one neat thing you might want to consider, you could always copy a program. Let's imagine we wanted to do a 12-month or prosthetic residency in Chicago too. Just hit copy program. And then pick the program we just built, Chicago 12-month. Copy all program settings and hit the copy button. And you'll see at the very top, there's my duplicate. I just made it. I'm going to edit my details real fast. And it still has the information for the orthotic residency, but it's super easy to fix. Watch this. I'm gonna hit edit. I'm gonna call this isn't orthotic, I wanna do a prosthetic residency. Remove the words copied, so that way the people applying know that I bothered looking. I'm gonna type in the new abbreviation, PX. All the dates are cool. All I gotta do is change the program type. I want a prosthetic resident. And hit save. And now, when I go to my homepage or branding, I have a clinical prosthetic residency with all the exact same information. And all I gotta do is hit submit for review, submit. When I go back to my organization now, I have 2 programs under review, ready to get posted so people can actually start applying to work in Chicago for an orthotic or a prosthetic residency. On that note, Ryder asked a great question. Do we need to upload the branding and program description for each listing? So you actually don't need to do it every single time, so long as you are content with the information that's already there. So I could tell you, Kevin did a beautiful job of building out the applications. I'm going to actually do a program copy of one of the ones Kevin built, not the ugly one that I had. So I'm going to go ahead and go to London, 12-month, and hit copy. And now when I go there, I'm going to edit my details, and I'm going to click my little eyeball, and you'll see all the information is already pre-populated, including the proper updated Kenny logo and branding, as well as all the questions that have been answered. So you do not need to keep re-uploading logos and this information. I recommend you copy it and just do some slight edits from location to location if necessary, because Kevin could tell you the London office, he's a different population than the Lexington office, for example. So he does customize these depending on the office. So hopefully that addresses your question, Ryder. If not, feel free to send me a follow-up in the chat or unmute. But do we have any other questions from the audience before I hand things off to my partner, Ms. Marshall? All right. On that note, Ms. Marshall, I took them through the art of getting an application built so people can apply to become their next resident. Can you show them the art of WebAdMIT and how to view those applicants and pick the best one?
I surely can. Hi, everyone. It's nice to be here. I'm Megan Marshall, the Client Success Manager. Also just wanted to point out, we also have my colleague, Joel Cardenas. He's actually going to be taking over as the Client Success Manager too. So thank you, Joel, for being here. I'm going to share my screen here. You know, if you can see me. All righty. Shout out if you don't see my screen. So I am going to log in as Chris Robinson. Don't worry, I won't mess with your account too much. All right, so once you have submitted for review, provided that you have gotten that approval reply, you know, everything's good, your sites are now live. I'll also put the link in that email. Now, this is our live WebAdMIT environment. So you'll notice there's no pre-launch here in the link, and this is where you're actually going to view the candidates once you are live. So one thing you may notice is if you've been using OPRESCAS for a couple of years now, when you log in, you'll see this drop down. So if you wanted to go in the past and see the previous cycle applications, you can, but just make sure that you're in the 2021-2022 because that's the current cycle that closes in August of this year. Now, you may also notice there's nothing, it's all zeros. So could mean that no one has applied yet, but it could also mean that we need to check off the programs. So we're going to click account here, the upper right-hand corner, then edit my account. And here we have all of these programs. Each line here is a program that we created. Without this checked off, we're not going to see any of the candidates. So you want to check it off, and let's say, I don't know, maybe you're only looking at the prosthetics, you would just check these ones off. If you are, you know, the head program director and or you're going to be you always want to view all of your sites, You're going to check it all off. We also have this new feature that is super amazing. You check this off, and then if you come in, you know, maybe a month from now and you submit another program in that pre-launch environment, as soon as it's approved, it's going to automatically check off. You won't have to go back and check it off. So if you always want to see the programs, make sure you check this off. Super awesome feature. So I'm going to click submit here. And then if at any point I want to get back to my dashboard, I'm just going to click on this logo here. And then I'll see, look, awesome. Phew, we have all these applicants now. So you're going to want to focus a lot on this designations by application status tab. We have in progress. That means that they have not submitted yet. They've started it. They're working on it. They're not done yet. If we click on this here, you're really limited in what you can see because they haven't completed everything and submitted, but you have the name, you have the email. If you wanted to reach out to them, look, Megan, hey, Megan, you're cool, apply. You could go to emails here and you could, you know, send them an email. Hey, you know, how's it going? Please let us know if you want to apply. If you have any questions, reach out to customer service, whatever you want. And I'll show you guys more about emails in a moment. The next status is received. These are applicants who have completed the application. If you checked that box in the letters of evaluation section, it's going to be looking for those letters. If not, you really won't see any of them received. So if you're not requiring those letters, it's basically going to be in progress if they haven't submitted, complete if they have submitted. So if we click here, I'm going to go into this application here. Each of these panels is going to kind of correspond to certain WebAdMIT features or certain information that the applicant entered. So, you know, contact information. This is what the candidate has reported for their address. They can keep this information up to date throughout the cycle, so it's possible that this could change. You can see here the designation they submitted to. You click off details here. More information about the program. Here's the name, the start term year, the type.
Hey, Megan, we had a good question pop up. Looks like this application is showing as completed. What's the difference between received and completed?
Yep, so if you have that button checked off, let's see, in that evaluation section, let's see, this bar is open in the way here. Can log in. All right, so turn this off in a minute. Send evaluations, you check it off and they're in received, then they've submitted, but they're missing the letters. If you don't have this checked, the only statuses you need to worry about are in progress and complete. If it's not checked, there'll be no received. Does that make sense? See, I can't really see the chat here. Is that clear? Any questions? All right, I'm going to move on. So if you're under documents here, you can see the full application PDF. If you wanted to just kind of take this PDF out of WebAdMIT and then view it, you could just download this here. Okay. And here we've got their full PDF with all their information. The transcripts here. So there is a section of the application called the colleges attended where they list their O&P school, and they have the option of uploading the transcript here. So if they don't have to, but if they had done that, you would see the transcript and you could download what they have uploaded right here. So there we got their Northeastern transcript. The applicant uploaded documents application level are if the applicant uploaded a document in the core of the application, and they can add in certifications, licenses, achievements. They do have the option of uploading it. You may not see any documents here because this is an optional section, but if they do, you'll see it under the CAS uploaded documents here. And it looks like they uploaded a certification. Chats. Alrighty. The applicant uploaded documents program level. So those are the documents that we set up in the configuration portal. So, you know, these documents here, anything that they uploaded, so whatever it is that you guys set here, you would find them here. So we got the other document and a CV resume. Lastly, we have the admissions uploaded documents. If the candidate sends you a file directly, you can't upload it here. I would say I would try not to use it for evaluations because there's a portal that the evaluators can use where they go in and complete everything. And if you just upload it here, it wouldn't become completed. So in general, you would want to refer them to the evaluation portal, and they actually do have customer support team that they can reach out to if they have any questions. And it's on the login page when they go to complete this. So here we can pull the PDF that they uploaded, click evaluator details to see the information for the person writing the letter for the candidate. And then here is going to show us those Likert responses. Alrighty. They can self-report tests. Just keep in mind that anything listed here, they're going to be self-reported unofficial tests because we don't accept official test scores directly. You wouldn't see that in here. So that might actually be something that you would upload in the admissions uploaded documents because the official scores aren't going to be showing up here. Alrighty, education is just pulling from the application. So here we see the O&P schools that they've listed. You may notice this not yet verified. Don't worry about that because this CAS doesn't use verification. So just pretend this little sun is not here. Something else to keep in mind, it's a little clunky. So there's evaluations and there's references. The evaluations here are the ones that you would set up and config, and it links to that letters portal. The references is just a place for them to enter the name and email address in case you wanted to reach out for a letter. So you don't really have the letter here. You just have, you can reach out to Ashley here if you want a professional reference. These experience achievements, licenses, these are all part of the core application where the candidates can report, but they might not. It's up to them whether they want to complete this or just opt out of this section. So it looks like this person added in a lot, so that's cool. And emails. You can send an email to this applicant through here. If you have an email template saved, which you could do under the management tab here, you can create an email template. So let's say you're going to be sending an email out to applicants, the same email, hi, we received your application and we're considering you. You might want to just create the email template so that when you go to email, you would be able to just click down. See, we don't have it because we don't have any templates, but it basically would just have a drop down. You'd be able to select a template and then everything will autofill. There are also some cool features. You can do some formatting, and my favorite is the mail merge. So you can go, hello, first name. One thing I would say, if you're going to do first name and last name, make sure you do the space or it'll be like, hi, Megan Marshall. So you want to do the space, last name, and then these are also other things that you can merge. Another really cool thing about the emails is that once you send it out, you will see a record of the email here, and it'll tell you whether it was delivered, opened, you know, undelivered for whatever reason. So you can see if it's actually been used. Oh, looks like we got it. Got it. Notes is for you guys. If maybe 2 people at your site do the reviews, maybe one person, once they do a review, they'll put in, you know, I recommend this applicant, please note, whatever, please take a look at that. And then you can record your note here in the application. And just to quickly show you email templates, if we wanted to create one, let's do, thank you for submitting. When you're creating the template, if you're going to be sending this email to candidates in all of these sites, check all. If we didn't check this, then we wouldn't be able to send this email to candidates to this site. So most of the time, you're going to be checking all these off, unless it's specific to a certain site. Thank you for submitting. Can add an attachment. I'm going to write really bad email. And just going to quickly save. And then we have this template saved here so that if we went to email someone, just going to go to a random complete application. Click my email here. And there's my template. Just keep in mind that when emails are sent out of WebAdMIT, they basically, you can't reply back to WebAdMIT. So the default reply to is going to be the email address in your account. But what you can also do is if you want it to go to like maybe just your general, maybe you have a admissions email address. You can create that here under email addresses. And then once you add it, you'd be able to say, I want the replies to go to that address. So you would just do this here under emails and literally just add in the email address. And just do like a general name, like it could be, you know, admissions office email. I would say most of the time people just go with the default and then it goes back to the email address. So this will go to Chris Robinson's Gmail account. I'm gonna pause for a second. Do we have any questions? Seem to be unable to open this bar right now. Alrighty. Let's see. I also like to show you List Manager. So depending on how many sites you have and how many candidates, you may or may not need to use List Manager. If you have, you know, maybe a handful or so, you're probably just going to review all of them. But let's say you have a ton of candidates and you want to just look at a certain population first. So let's say for now, I just want to see how many domestic applicants I have. I'm going to review the domestic ones before the international. So I'll name it domestic applicants. Here we have this lovely, very long list of all of the things that you can list on. It's a little scary because there's so much here, but it's really a good thing because it means that you can basically report on all of these things. So let's say we're looking for international. So I'm going to go to the current mailing address. And I'm going to say, I am looking for a country that is, I'm just going to type in United States. Submit here. It's going to pull me all of the candidates who've listed their address in the US. So it looks like we've got 35 people, and we can take a look at each individual one. What you can also do here is we have this list actions. If you wanted to say email all these people, and I don't know if there's a certain communication that needs to go out to just your domestic applicants, you would be able to do that straight from here in email in bulk, which can be super helpful. You can also edit the list rules if you needed to change anything here. And that is list manager. Just gonna pause for a moment. Does anyone have any questions? You know, I'm talking a bit fast, so let me know if you wanna focus on anything in particular.
Had a good question come in on the chat. Given the goal to be more inclusive in education and employment, are there any of the CASs that are completely removing questions regarding race or ethnicity? I know we've always had the ability to say you're not required to disclose and prefer not to disclose, but has anybody elected to remove it entirely?
Oh, that is a bit over my pay grade, Chris. I believe they can decline not to state. Let me put this in here. Let's look it up here, actually.
And this is Britt. I can just jump in for a second. I know I have not heard of any other CASs that have completely removed that section.
Thank you, Brittany.
Although an interesting side note is there are a handful of states that have what's called ban the box, where you're not allowed to ask about criminal history at the time of initial application. Illinois is one of them. So if the candidate identifies that they're applying to a residency program in any one of those states, it actually removes any requirement to identify criminal history because of the ban the box laws that exist. On that note, if they make it to the second round of interviews, you are still allowed to ask those questions of previous criminal history, et cetera.
Yeah, this is where we have that stipulation. And just so you guys can see what it looks like for the applicant, this is that section. Oops. Thanks. Sorry, for some reason I can't see the chats anymore. Are there any other ones?
Nothing coming in at the moment.
Awesome.
You have a couple of kind of just general things to be mindful of with regard to executing the system. You mind if I take the screen back?
Absolutely.
All right. Please stand by. We're just getting our screen share brought back over. And just a few considerations. One, make sure that your human resource team knows about OPRESCAS and that it is a requirement. That's something to keep in mind. I've had a few HR folks who felt somewhat blindsided and said, no, we're definitely hiring a resident. But then they learned you have to actually advertise through this system. So feel free to obviously loop them in. And two, they actually can have their own account and access all the functions you have as a Resi director or mentor. And actually, I know I have a few HR representatives on this call today. Two, on your website, make sure you update any language that is regarding how to apply for residency. I recommend adopting something that says, to view positions, please visit the OPRESCAS system. This has already been done, I can tell you, by some of the larger organizations, such as Autobach Healthcare, Ozer Clinical Partnership, U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs. And last but not least, if you have local faculty members at the schools, you know the program director at University of Hartford, Matt Parenti, let them know when you're advertising on OPRESCAS, especially if you're in the Northeast, because he has an awful lot of students from that way. Now, few other things that I just wanted to make sure that we covered. If your clinic doesn't hire a resident year over year, do you need to do anything if you don't plan to hire anyone during this cycle? And remember, a cycle runs from the fall of one calendar year through the summer of the next calendar year. And the answer is, forgive me, my screen jumped on you. No, you actually should not be advertising residency positions and submitting configurations if you have no intention of hiring or filling. So the best way to frustrate future residents is to say, yes, we have a residency program, but we're not hiring. So if you're an accredited program through NCOPE, you're going to be listed on the NCOPE website directly. It says they're fully accredited. So Carl, for example, has an accredited residency program at Children's Healthcare of Atlanta. It's visible 365 days a year because they're fully accredited, but he only advertises positions for residency when they're actively hiring, and that's what we want you to do. In terms of graduation dates, remember, there's kind of a range from March through December. So that rolling admissions may work to your advantage. And if folks are thinking, I'll never find a resident to start in January, to the contrary, you're going to have at least 35 individuals from FIU as well as UT Southwestern hoping to start January 1st, given the chance. Now, if your configuration has been submitted and is approved, that's when you know candidates can see it. So remember, when you're logged into CAS configuration portal, you'll see a little approved if it's truly visible. Let's see, and last but not least, how can we help? Beyond the general support information available on the website that I already pasted into your chat, we're also available to provide some one-on-one support. So me, Joelle, Megan, we're more than happy to walk you through things if you haven't set this up before, because we recognize it's not always the most intuitive thing. But as you saw, it's really easy to take a well-built application and duplicate it for future use and purposes. So we'd love to help you build out that application that meets your needs and make sure that you have the largest and most qualified applicant pool connect with you and your residency. On that note, if you want to get a hold of us, our email addresses are on that website I've already shared, and they're listed here directly too. I'll open up the floor to any last minute questions we might have, as we do have a few minutes remaining. And you're welcome to drop them into the chat window, or we can also entertain them by just having you unmute your microphones.